afternoon, Masa Khair. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Noof, Khonji. For those of you who don't know me, we are starting the first panel here with Bayan and William. And we'll be talking about the various ways of learning and ecosystem development that has to do with the arts. So my first question is actually to the audience. Who can give me or explain to me what an arts ecosystem is? There are no wrong or right answers. Go for it. Nobody? Anyone?
No.
I mean, it has many different players, but I mean, I would echo what Rose was saying. I think it begins with community.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, so I'm going to turn the question to Bayan and to William. So William, what is an art ecosystem to you?
Well, basically, I think an ecosystem in a very sort of vibrant community exists of many different actors. And I think, first of all, obviously, you start with the artists and the artists of all disciplines. And then you actually look at the educators, and educators in a formal sense, and then educators in an informal sense. And the informal sense being, some small workshops, programs, presentations, and even as Rose was saying, these gestures where people actually set up a space, even in their own home. Also, you can have shared studio spaces. These are all ways of informal learning. And then beyond that, beyond the educators, you have the galleries. And you have the commercial galleries, which are essential. And then beside the commercial galleries, you have the galleries that operate programs, and they are essentially there to develop and help and support the artists in many different ways. And I think that's fundamentally what Riwaq is an example of. Then you have the museums, and the museums have to reflect what is going on within that society. They have to reflect the contemporary nature of that sort of vibrancy that the infrastructure creates. And most importantly, you need collectors and patrons for that infrastructure to be sustainable. I mean, obviously there's a lot more, but I've broken it down into what I think are components.
Yeah, there's much more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a good explanation. Bayan, what do you think?
Okay, in my own interpretation of it, which we are trying to do, create this kind of a relationship between the artist community, between the artists, and learn from each other, number one, locally, working in groups and collaborating, and then working and aspiring to go to collaborate with also other artists and get other artists to come to Bahrain and have residencies and work with locals in groups. This is, in my opinion, is a very nice ecosystem and other ways of learning. And the other way is also reach easily connecting to the international, being informed, being connected. We know what's going on. We are not kind of in bubbles. So everybody can do whatever they feel good with, but the ecosystem is like you can respect others, you can work with others, you can collaborate and work.
So there are a couple of things also there. In order for us to do that, there's an aspect of collaboration that needs to be involved. There's an aspect of conversation that needs to be had, and there's almost like in my opinion, an honest analysis of what we actually have in Bahrain and where the opportunities lie. A lot of ecosystems are not complete, and in that incomplete or in these gaps, what you find are actual opportunities instead of kind of looking at the void. It's actually a place for us to kind of see how we can fill it in a unique way that's specific to Bahrain. So for Riwaq, I think there are various roles that you take. What have you seen that's unique to the Bahraini ecosystem that you feel like you could kind of capitalize on? I mean, William, we can start with this since, you started Nexus and your exposure to our system.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I have to say is that, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's these fissures within the society that are actually the opportunities. And they're visible, they're in front of everybody in this room every single day. When you get up in the morning and whatever you do throughout the day, they're there, and they are potentially the most exciting catalysts for whatever it is that you want to produce and whatever an institution wants to sort of build on. Collaboration is absolutely essential. I have to honestly say that I feel that the infrastructure here in Bahrain in the few years that I've been here, I feel it's weak. But at the same time, I think that the strongest elements that I personally have experienced are the human resources. I think there's enormous creativity. I think there's the most articulate population who have research skills, who've proven those to me through the Nexus and Ways of Seeing courses and in private conversations. There is this genuine aspiration to reach out to this global conversation. But there's also this rather hesitancy to move together in some sort of collaborative, collective fashion, which keeps everything at a slow pace.
I think, yeah, I would tend to agree from my experience also within the GCC and internationally. I think what's interesting for Bahrain, and I think Bayan can definitely add to this, is the actual potential that exists here. Now, what's interesting for me within Riwaq is that you're able to mold that potential into something. And this is not kind of formally in the past what Riwaq used to claim, but I think we can agree that there are certain artists and creators that have benefited from this space. For me, I think one of the points that you mentioned was the hesitancy when it comes to kind of collaboration. And I think here there's an opportunity for Riwaq to really be the platform for communication, for example, or for collaboration. So I would assume that Nexus or any programs that could be created now or later could possibly be focused on collaborative, creative collaborations. As Rose mentioned earlier, the multidisciplinary aspect of who we are as individuals in Bahrain is something that can be utilized to create something new. And I know we had this conversation earlier about what would be interesting is the opportunity or the idea that maybe we could kind of write a unique space or position for Bahrain or for the creative community. And Bayan, what do you think could be that future for
I really believe that we have very special individuals and we have also institutions that they want to make something, but I think the difficulties we are facing is opening up, breaking that fear and accepting kind of, I think because we don't have a criticism or like a critique for the art and no portfolio reading, no kind of mentoring, all of this is making people either defensive or either closed or either forcefully showing their kind of work with like a very big ego. But that is not really an ego. I think it is just a kind of a defensive mode.
It might be a fear.
Yeah, it is definitely. Defense, it comes from fear, of course. But it's just a kind of, we have a lot of talents, and I think we just need to change our ways of reaching out, our opening, our connecting. The more talks, the more discussions, the more collaborating, the more of like, listening to others. The experience I've had when we did when we went publicly, when we were in 338, it was a kind of the interaction with people. That's what made the impact on each one who was like, when we did the market, the market was a way of discovering talents that are shy talents. So basically by standing and not to put somebody representing you, you will be representing yourself, and people will ask you, will question, will criticize, will add to you, will be surprised with what you're doing. And that is like you will come back and reflect with what you get from this, and it will give you a way of changing your thinking. This is definitely a way of looking at it. So reaching out and talking is something.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually just agree with that totally, and I think that this notion of Riwaq and when it went out into the streets, one of the most important things for any country, anywhere in the world, and any art ecosystem, is cultivating this demand for the arts. And that's what Riwaq did by stepping out into the street. And the other thing is that I think, one of the things I realized is when I spoke earlier about the human resources that are available, literally within this very small group of islands, there are a number of people that practice the arts and they imagine themselves as artists because that's the only avenue that they feel is available to them, and they enjoy it. So they go into a studio and they work. But my interactions with a lot of people are in fact that they're trapped, that it's not art production necessarily what they're really very good at. I find that, in fact, they would be amazing art critics. And art criticism is essential for here in Bahrain, because art criticism, a critique of the arts, actually has such an incredible impact on the fabric of society in reaching out. And that's why I think people should expand their understanding of what that infrastructure is and the various roles that they could possibly explore, as opposed to just seeing themselves as artists.
So I would add to that. I think there's an aspect which you highlighted, which is the kind of defining yourself and placing yourself as an artist in a box, essentially.
Yes.
And with that comes the limitations of that box. Whereas there's a sense of dependency that we kind of need to break away from when it comes to being an artist. So kind of, creating that root or that space for yourself to grow with the idea that you can do essentially anything you kind of put your heart or effort into as a creative individual. And if you can't do that, then you can reach out to a bigger circle of people that are able to kind of help you out.
Yes.
With your experience in Egypt, could you kind of, were there similarities, differences that you see with your experience here in Bahrain?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But what I do see is this hesitancy that I spoke of earlier. There seems to be a lack of confidence, and I think that there's an overconfidence that is often presented, but it suggests, in fact, insecurity. The need for institutions, the need for individuals to be able to think imaginatively, creatively about how they can learn from their peers. I mean, even shared studios, for goodness sake, is a form of learning. The idea of individuals renting their own spaces, not being dependent on institutions, not being dependent on the government institutions, but going out there and renting an apartment and hosting your own exhibition and having your own program that goes with that exhibition. I mean, this is what really started almost a revolutionary approach to the arts in Egypt 15, 20 years ago. And I see the potential for it here everywhere, particularly when half the country is empty. Rents are really low. All it needs is artists to sort of gather together, put 15, 20 pounds BD together, and you got yourself someplace to work, someplace to talk, and to build on your own interests.
So to create that position, to create that space, there's a sense of independence or like independency that needs to be created.
Yes.
Cultivated in the artist, where you kind of pushing against the grain, really, you know, just trying to define yourself. And then there's also the opportunity that Riwaq provides as a role, as a stakeholder within this platform or this ecosystem that we have. So as Riwaq, how would you define your role within all of this right now?
I think when Riwaq stopped for a few years, I felt the need for it, and I never expected that it had that impact on the community and the art community, but not only on the art community, it's just a kind of people used to enjoy it, but in a very settled way, like, you know, they're used to it, take it for granted. And the minute we missed it, I mean, I was exhausted, I was tired, and I felt, well, it's good, it's about time, 20 years was really good, but I felt the gap in the art scene, the gap in the kind of gathering. That was at least a place. The reason we opened the cafe there was for people to meet and sit together and discuss and form this kind of exchange of ideas, exchange of thinking. So what we are trying to, when we came back, we felt very strongly kind of, we know exactly what is missing. We know by this void that what is needed, and the most important thing is just a kind of, people thinks it's all about everything is just being calculated by money, but to be honest, it's just a kind of, it is investing in the people, investing and spending the money in a different way. We are a consumer's mentality. So everybody is like kind of, so how can you afford to do this? How can you do? I cannot afford to do this, but I insisted to do it. There is a way of looking at it. If you want to think of, as William was said, it's very easy to get a studio and work together. It's just you need to really decide what you want to do. So here, what we are trying to create at Riwaq is that platform for people to meet together, to work together, to support also each other, and to mentor, to start to curate shows, and show all different forms of creativity. This is what we are hoping to do.
And I think on that note, the idea of creativity is, it shouldn't be limited to the arts as visual arts. You know, there are so many other or sectors or factions or definitions of what that means. You know, we touched upon, you know, art creation. We also have art production. You know, development. You know, art research, which, you know, creative research has. For me, this is like the basis of everything. So an understanding of, you know, you need art historians, you need to understand the landscape that you're in as well. And Bahrain is quite unique compared to Kuwait, compared to Saudi, compared to any other country.
Just I want to add, like, you know, in Riwaq, we've created a different experience. That's what it is. What is special about Riwaq, it is like we don't follow any kind of experience, we don't copy. The thing is that we work within what is needed. So creativity, I feel, even like musicians, chefs, designers, it's just a kind of, William sometimes looks at me, this is not my section. I said, well, fine, it's not your section. But design is an art and a way of living. It is needed in each day. So he's specialized more in the working with the artists, more like, you know, curating, discussing, whatever. I think a little bit kind of holistic, let's say. The ecosystem is in my head. So we're trying to create this kind of ecosystem for everything. It's just a kind of a center for creativity. And the most important thing is expressing. This is what, but the ways of expressing, we only learn. I started with not knowing anything. I didn't study art, by the way. So it's just a kind of, and I'm not an artist myself. So basically, I learned, and the fear was kind of part of even facing it. And it only makes me challenge myself, and I want to learn more. So I think the fear is just something good. It's not bad.
Can I just add, I think that what Bayan is saying is absolutely right in so many ways, and it makes me recall experiences back in Cairo, in the sense that institutions like Riwaq and the one that I was working in Cairo bring together so many diverse disciplines, purely and simply not just as audiences, but by providing them with space and a platform for them to perform. And then what happens, if the setting is correct, then they start their own conversations. And through those conversations, they start collaborations. And so then you get a visual artist working with a sound artist, working with a filmmaker, and then you end up with a work that is a culmination of all those different talents. And that is essential also for any infrastructure. I really believe that. But we also have to understand that places like Riwaq and other galleries, maybe they're not for you, that they have their own agendas. And it's not just a matter of being a wide open space. You suddenly arrive and you say, listen, I've got this work and I'd like to have an exhibition. And then when the curator or the director turns around and says, well, no, thanks very much, perhaps you should go somewhere else. One has to accept that that in itself is an opportunity. And I've seen that happen, where people have rebounded and said, well, wait a minute, why am I being rejected from this space? I believe in my work, I believe in my voice, I actually believe in what we're doing. So it's another reason for me to actually step aside and initiate something, as Rose said, in her bedroom. Start there. And literally, if you do have that confidence, if you do feel that your voice needs to be heard, then being rejected is an opportunity, because not everybody can be accepted for any institution. There's always going to be the parameters of where you belong. And everyone should be always looking at a space's prior history, its legacy, in terms of what kind of work they show, produce, support, develop.
I think also, just to add to that, is that you shouldn't, as an individual, a creative individual, you shouldn't be waiting for someone to give you the kind of seal of approval.
Right.
You know, you as a creative individual, in whichever sense that is defined in your career, should be creating your own path.
Yes.
Based on the determination that you have. And if you know, some people can't do that, to be frank, you know. But if you can't do that, then maybe you can lean on other individuals or create smaller kind of spaces where you can lean and create those conversations and collaborations with other people. Yes. So there's no kind of extreme sense of burden where, you know, you're like, oh my God, I have to fight this fight by myself.
I just have to add, like, you know, from my experience as running a gallery, when I used to travel, and all of that happened through the search. When I used to travel and attend all kind of conferences and all the kind of symposiums, and it was a kind of, all the time, this kind of search. I also felt very small. I also felt sometimes rejected. I also felt I don't fit, we don't get this. But by opening up, by reaching there, by also coming back, reflecting, absorbing, and then it will come in a way, in another way. Maybe not now, but later. So this is what I feel. It is on everybody, all levels. So also, I mean, the more I work together, the minute I felt I collaborated with William, like, you know, now the NFT thing is happening. The NFT is just, maybe we don't understand it, we don't fit with it, we don't. But when I was and I met William in 2003 in House of World Cultures, there was a lot of video art, and then this kind of like, and everybody was saying this art is like for foreigners, this is like a kind of, they've inserted in our kind of brains, this is not our identity. But the minute I looked at the art, I felt it was very kind of, very strong identity, very strong local identity. So it doesn't matter what way you choose to express your creativity, but your identity will show. And from that, I took the responsibility, and I was like lucky enough to meet William, and also I met other people. I met Jack Persian there, I met others, but the more I collaborated, I've invited people to come here with the responsibility and the feel of, like, you know, we might collaborate. So there is nothing sure. This is similar to artists getting together.
Absolutely.
So galleries getting together. I've invited William, I've shown video art, people were laughing at it, basically, at the beginning. They just walked in and they didn't understand it and they just left for, what is this? So at the end of the day, we've reached somewhere, we've showed something new, I've learned so much, and it gave me the courage to keep on believing in other artists, supporting other artists, sending artists abroad a residency, and so I am kind of like the artist, but in another way.
So for, I think, a point that you touched upon is, Riwaq can't also function by itself. There is there's a dependency of a Riwaq within the ecosystem to collaborate as an institution and not as an individual anymore. And then there's also, the artist's role within all of that. There's a lot of other things. And to be frank, our ecosystem is not complete. We have a lot of things that need to be built. From art curation to art history to art production so I know it might be challenging because I've been in that space where I'm super frustrated with what's going on and I just want to leave or I just want to, but it's actually, it could be, again, an idea of rewriting that frustration into something that could be impactful to other individuals, to other people who are feeling the same way, or creating something because of that frustration. So with my work with Noof, which is used to be a creative conference in Kuwait, it really came out of a frustration. There was a frustration because a lot of people were doing their masters, which I had faced as well, and trying to find data in the GCC, and you could not find anything. You couldn't find two, 3 sentences. There was WASPA involved, and I had to knock on 15, 20, 30 million doors to find 2 pages or something. And because of that, what happened was a bunch of people in Kuwait, Hassan and Sarah and Jan, came together and said, what, if there's no data, we'll create the data. So they brought in individuals from the Arab diaspora in the MENA region and North Africa. And we had these conversations, and these conversations became data, and that data became reference points, and so on and so forth. So again, maybe that could be an example of how you change something really negative into something a bit more positive. Or let the negativity feed your fire.
It's part of it. Yeah. It's part of it, I think. And also by us being here today, looking at everybody's gathered, getting the support for it, and people wants to benefit in any way. Maybe they will not benefit now, but at least there is a kind of 1 word or 2 words will make something for you. So, it's just a kind of, this journey is going on. It's a human journey anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know, this is what it is.
Yeah. And I think on that note, I think the main points that we want to highlight is experiment, learn, activate your role, activate yourself, feed your frustration, really look at how you can add value as an individual. And if you can't at this point in time, that's okay. You can come back to something and revisit it. Like Riwaq, your role with there was an end in the beginning and an end in the beginning. So there was always, pick up those pieces, come back, build whatever needs to be built. So again, if you guys aren't testaments, Riwaq could be definitely a testament to that. So on that note, I think we're gonna end this. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
And we'll go on to the next topic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions or answers or no? Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, I was waiting.
Okay, sorry.
I have 2 comments and 1 question. I didn't get to answer the definition of the ecosystem. So I defined it in my way. So as an environmental where the art can maintain the level of growth over the time. This is the ecosystem. And welfare the society. This is the ecosystem. And as Mr. said about the infrastructure, and there is a successful factor for the successful collaboration that we face here in Bahrain or any artist. I conclude the successful factor, in my opinion, there is a collaboration. They have a common goal of this collaboration. Second, adequate support, like as Riwaq support over the years and now, alhamdulillah, happy to have Riwaq back again. Third, a clear way of the communication between the artists together. There is no way to clear communications, so no purpose to. Fourth, the fair recognition of each artist collaborating on this project or any project, and the copyrights of each individual in this project. This is the comment about the eco and the successful. And my question to Riwaq, what do you see in Bahrain for the art as a way of living or source of income? Here in Bahrain, we have a small community, small people have preferences for the taste. Artists cannot make much money to sustain his monthly living, and it's hard. So, in your opinion, what we can do for improving this?
Can I also answer this question?
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
So, I think there are various things. Yes, you're right. I mean, there is, because of the way the ecosystem is right now in Bahrain, it's very difficult to sustain yourself as an artist and solely an artist. But this is where I think you need to start looking around you as an individual or as an artist to how you can connect with not only the regional ecosystem, but also the international one. Mm-hmm. So if you want to create, if you want to live and be an artist by yourself, also, I need to highlight this. Part of being an artist is there needs to be a struggle. There's no way you're going to kind of just, yeah, I'm going to be an artist, yeah, it's wonderful, I'm going to make so much money from day one. There's no way. So again, that aspect you need to recognize and realize that you'll be going through that. And then also, Bahrain as Bahrain right now cannot sustain itself by itself when it comes to the art ecosystem. There needs to be a much larger conversation that you need to have. I don't know what you think.
That's exactly what, I mean, even in Riwaq by itself, what does it mean to just kind of do exhibitions? And you have a choice always. You can do an exhibition and choose. It was always a choice. What kind of art you want to display? Art with a message, or art is beautiful, just a kind of collecting and enjoy it and keep you calm, or art that can bring raise questions and challenges. So it was always from the beginning a challenge of choosing. The gallery is also like an artist as well. They may not sell, they may not have an income, they cannot survive, and the aim is just when you say non-for-profit, it's a big statement because people think you are in the art scene, there's a lot of money. But a lot of money, this is what we took the model, like, galleries and this big, because art is sophisticated and you need to be in a certain way of thinking to just kind of, people, when later on they become comfortable, they're just kind of collecting and buying whatever, but you need, until you reach there, you need to really find different ways. Maybe you are an artist yourself, but I mean, as Riwaq started, we used to show different kind of art, and then we changed into another way of art, and then another way of art. But the intention was always there. There was a kind of always an intention to continue in the same field, but in different ways. So yes, an artist maybe cannot get, but as Noof was saying, apply and try and apply for, now Tamkeen is trying to support, and we're trying to kind of get some ways of, when we do an open call and people will apply, it's no harm to listen and understand maybe your work wasn't accepted in here, but it might be accepted in somewhere else, or maybe it needs another way of modifying. So yes, maybe you cannot make money, but you can later on make something. And there are many ways of different, of supporting yourself.
What do you think?
Well, I just want to add one thing, that Bahrain and the artists in Bahrain, the art community in Bahrain, it's no different from anywhere else in the world. I mean, when you talk about struggle, I don't know any country And I've visited a lot of countries and a lot of communities, but I don't know anywhere where the majority of the artists don't have jobs. And, you know, whether those jobs are working in theaters, as ushers, whether they're working in Starbucks, whether they're working in bars, whatever, they're working and they're going home to their studios on the weekends. And I mean, this is a common ground because the playing field works against the artists. You just have to accept that. And in reality, a lot of the world just expects the art world to work for free. So no matter what your skill is, you're always being tapped on the shoulder and saying, listen, can you just do this for me, please? You're so lucky to be able to have your name working for Nike. You know, you're so lucky to, you know, give a lecture at this university. Everything's stacked against you, not just in Bahrain. So you're in a global community of struggle. That's life.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I agree with William what you said, like the struggling, but there are systems with like councils for the art with grants that support ambitious projects, emerging artists, and I think that would be something to be considered here, to have small grants supporting small ideas and to project them out. And this, I feel, this is very much new. So the grant system will beautiful review, neutral jury to check their validity and to nurture these small concepts. And I think that in Canada they have a very established system where on a provincial level and on a government level we have like the Council of Arts Commission.
You know, Camille, I couldn't agree with you more. And I know a number of countries like, you know, South Korea as well, and the Netherlands, but one has to be straightforward and say, if we're going to do that, they've got to be transparent. There has to be a criteria. There has to be something where people actually understand, you know, why this individual, that practitioner received that grant. I mean, I'm on a foundation and that's what we do. We look at applications all of the time, but there is a criteria. But I totally agree with you.
There's also the aspect of, you know, defining what type of artist you want to be.
Yeah.
So there are various artists. Yes, you can create, you can, you know, and how you fit within this ecosystem or the other. So the grant system works for various artists that would, but there needs to be like you said, transparency and focus on what that means and where you are going to be and how you want to define yourself as an artist. There are artists that are very happy, you know, selling their art online, or there are artists very happy being, and that doesn't mean you're less of an artist or better artist. There are artists that want to be in museums, and there's a different journey there. It's different.
I want to add, like, you know, that's why we are doing this kind of conversation these 2 days, and somewhat a way of like the approach to the learning and whatever. It's not really only learning for the artists, also of other ways of finding support for them. And that's why we are inviting tomorrow. Sheikh Adoua is our part of the conversation. Sheikh Hala is going to be here. Also, we are including the supporters at Tamkeen, because Tamkeen, they want to launch a new grants for the creativity. And they still can't form it because it's intangible. People cannot measure it. So they need more supporters and people. So I think we are going there, but we are going in a steady steps. So we are not jumping as, like when we see Saudi Arabia, things happened all overnight, but things were happening even before. But it was happening, whatever is showing on the surface was the governmental, and it was a different way. But there was so much happening underneath. So when the opportunity came, and somebody came to just kind of look, there was a lot of talents there. They only brought it together, and I think we are going there. Bahrain is always different, but it is always full of many opportunities. So that's what we are trying to discover these 2 days of ways of doing it.
Yeah, another thing, just to add, for example, in Saudi Arabia, what helped the artists there and the communities that were developed is system al-Bakta, which is the scholarship system that they had. That really removed a lot of the financial burden that an individual has to take to pursue what they wanted to pursue. You know, and that was very unique to Saudi Arabia. What can happen to Bahrain, again, needs to be something that is unique to the ecosystem here. So,
and it works within.
Exactly.
What does need to be understood that we don't want to copy anybody. We don't want to look, we cannot look like UAE, we cannot look like Qatar, we cannot be like Saudi Arabia. We have to be our own self. And we are so different. So yes, we have to also be patient again here, but going in the right direction. That doesn't mean stopping, but it's just kind of continuing in a steady. Thank you.
any more questions? We have 5 minutes. Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Another thing about the hesitation comment on William and the importance of art criticism, this cannot be more important to empower here. And I have offered a few workshops over the years, and this is a major weakness that I feel around me here, and I don't know how this can be fixed or not fixed. How we can improve on this, and that's something that really I feel Riwaq role should play an important part to work on this particular aspect. I feel like really this confidence, people expressing and accepting positive criticism, constructive criticism, I feel that this is something that needs to be moved forward.
Professionality, I think, also, when you take it from a professional, not to take it as a personal, like people think it's a kind of, you don't have to criticize, you can just say your opinion and what you felt, and that's not a criticism, it's just kind of, it's different than how you, but this is also the defensive way of looking at it, because anything new is just a kind of unaccepted. So I really feel we need to really, that's the reason we're trying to create a kind of membership, we're trying to create a kind of people, they come back here, they discuss, they gather, they create workshops, and that's how the workshops can definitely add more, in different ways, of course. Thank you.
I would just say, you know, we've spoken about this before. I think that the programs, the theoretical programs that we run here at Riwaq, and also the skill-based workshops that we run, I mean, it's, you know, you're trying. We've only been back up and running in Riwaq for the last couple of months, and the programming has been insane. With such a small team, I'm surprised they're still standing. Even with this symposium, putting this together. But you're absolutely right. There is this stumbling block of getting people to work and learn, to get a peer learning. And it's something that we can only solve through platforms like this, discussions, and people sitting and talking and working out how do they do that, but not relying necessarily on the institution. So.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.